I, Abdoulie Njai, having been elected as member of the National Assembly of the Republic of the Gambia, do hereby swear that I shall be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of the Gambia, as by law established, that I shall execute the functions of the member of the National Assembly without fear or favor, affection or ill will, according to the Constitution and other laws of the Gambia. So help me God.
This podcast came to be because I want to reignite discussions about Pan-Africanism. And the purpose is to plant seeds of unity and inspiration among Africans, both at home and in the diaspora. I believe we have come to the stage where our continent is more vulnerable than ever, and it's up to us to decide our fate moving forward. What we will come to realize, I hope, is that we're so much more alike than we're different. And this show is just a small contribution to the public discourse that is going on in Africa right now. My name is Soshima Iro, and this is the Pan-African Experience. For today's episode of the Pan-African Experience, I will be speaking to Honourable Abdoulie Njai. Honourable Njai is a newly elected member of the Gambia National Assembly. His election in April this year made him the youngest member of his country's National Assembly. Prior to his election, Njai was and continues to be a community leader and a youth advocate. He spends a great deal of his time in volunteering services. He is the chair of Board of Directors at Unity Foundation. He is the chairperson of Development-Oriented Citizens, a group of advocates that promote peace, unity, progress, and development in Gambia. Honourable Njai considers himself a humanitarian and is very much interested in making positive changes in his country and around Africa. I am very honored and grateful to have him on the podcast. Honourable Abdoulie Njai, welcome to the Pan-African Experience.
Yeah, thanks so much, sir. Hero, it's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this wonderful Pan-African program, and I hope to have a very fruitful discourse with you to share my ideas, but also learn from each other as well. So,
okay. Okay. You know, you are a native of Banjul, Lancaster in Gambia, West African country, and on April 12th, you were elected as a member. April 12th, you were sworn in as a member of Gambia National Assembly, and that made you the youngest member of the National Assembly. Congratulations, by the way, on your election.
Yeah, thanks so much, sir. I appreciate it. It's quite an honor. It's already an honor to be a citizen of a country. To be born and bred in a certain country is an honor, it's a blessing. But it's just, I could say, a broader, I don't know how to, it was divine. Like, it's just a pure honor to be able to serve one's nation at such a high level. Being so young, it's just a blessing.
So when I say again, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
26.
Okay. So why politics? What made you go into politics?
Honest, my case is a really bit different from so many others. For the fact that I'm a very negative outlook in terms of the way I see the political spectrum, and it took me some time before I later understood that it was about the personalities, the individuals, but that politics is just politics, but it's how we do politics. And like the how is, is what's manifested, and what's manifested is quite negative. So that's the negative connotation have always had since my tender ages with so many, fellow comrades and activists, so it took us time before we realized that, in politics, one comes in to change certain things. So it depends on your intention, what have you come to do, and what do you want to change? Do you have the right prerequisites? Do you have the drive? Are you sincere enough in what you want to do? And to be very specific as to exactly what do you want to change? And these are the things that we learned very late, but once we were able to realize that, we could be, a sort of change. We could bring some sort of change in politics and how people see it. That was when we decided to step into politics. And, but my case, just to four things, it was more of a public call, more of a public call, because I've always been in the grassroots. Hope you don't mind. This is called attire in my local language.
Okay.
Yeah, this is called attire in my local language. So in Gambia here, wherever you pass by people, mostly when you see a group of people, you'll always see them brewing attire. It's a form of local tea that we like to brew locally, and drink them once in a while.
Is it like coffee?
For the body.
Is it like caffeine?
It's like coffee. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll invite you to Gambia one day so that you could have a taste of it. I don't know if you don't mind. I could have a sip.
Please, I would love to come. I would love to come one day. Please, go ahead.
The conversation. So it's taken by sips.
Okay.
Right?
Is it hot?
Yeah, it's usually hot.
Okay.
Usually hot. Yeah. It's the Pan-African discussion. Yeah. So everything has to be African. We have to localize everything. So
yes.
Yeah.
So, I have.
Yeah, so like I was saying,
go ahead.
My coming into politics came as a result of a public call, because I've always been on the ground. I was always leading from the back, doing my own thing, leading civil society organizations. I was very into charity work as well. I have a very high demonstrated record in, social upliftment and, civil society organizations, and all those sort of things. I was always, always eager to be of service to my community, So I was known, really. I was not someone new in the political. I was new in the political spectrum, but I was already a household name in my community. So it was as a result, they were really happy with the former incumbent, for certain reasons. So out of the blue, my name just started popping up, So I did have my reservations at first, but later on, after consultation, and proper self-assessment and stuff, I decided to take up the challenge, because the thing is, I realized that there were two things involved. Like, one was I would reject this, and then I would be back in the drawing board, pointing fingers that I don't like this, I didn't like this, this should have been done this way and that way. Or I could take up the challenge and try to be part of the policymakers, part of the lawmakers, part of the decision-making processes in order to make change in my community. So when I weighed the two, there was only one outcome. I had to be there for my people. So, yeah.
Okay.
So these are my reasons for coming into politics.
Yeah. What do you want to see change in your country? What did you campaign on? What issues are you passionate about?
Yeah. During my campaign, I had a 4-point agenda, that because before my campaign, in order to, we decided to be change makers in whatever we do. We want to be change makers in whatever process we take part of. So entering politics was totally new for us. I, together with my entire team, being so young and entering the political spectrum, and being challenged by so many experienced people in politics here. So it was quite challenging for us, but still to, give a due process and make sure we did everything to the max, make sure we do the right thing. So the first thing we did was we had a consultation. We went to our people to ask them. I'm a part of Banjul Central, together with most of my team members, but still wanted to ask the people exactly what their concerns were, what they think was lacking, things that they weren't happy with the incumbent. So we had a very bulky list of things that were real lapses in the constituency and in the Gambia generally. With that, we had to narrow it down. I had a series of meetings with my team. So we narrowed it down to a 4-point agenda. We felt that it encompasses everything that's been of concern, data that we got. So the first one was, the representation aspect. We felt that we weren't represented well. The second one, just to fast forward things, it was well detailed, but the second one was the legislative aspect. We feel that in terms of the legislative aspect, there wasn't the communication gap between, our parliamentarians and that of the people that they serve. There was really, a bit that need to be, a gap that need to be bridged. In terms of the legislative processes, as a parliamentarian, you are representing your people, your constituency. In parliament, you are their mouthpiece, right? So part of the cry of the constituency was that they didn't feel that, number one, they were represented. It was point number one in our 4-point agenda. We came to bring a better representation, right? So the second one was the legislative aspect. We felt that when it comes to the legislative aspect, the communication gap was really high. People didn't know what was being said there. They didn't know how they were being represented. There wasn't any form of consultation. So these were things that we felt was a big problem and a gap that we wanted to bridge. So that was point number 2. So point number 3 was the scrutinization of things. We felt that those that were representing us, when it comes to scrutiny, it was really biased because there was this, we had what we call the CRC, that was 2 years ago. It was called the Constitutional Review Commission. That was after the ouster of President Jammeh. We wanted to change the laws because, he was a dictator. So he usually used the parliament in trying to fix himself with laws that would favor him and to be able to, do all these, dirty stuff, So there were things that we wanted to change. So we had 2 options. The first option was, to amend the 1997 constitution that was already here, to pull out the things that we felt that, were really relative of our aspirations as a nation, or we could just have an overhaul, and have a change of the entire constitution. And that's what we opted for. That's what happened. So it was funded and everything. So in a 2-year process, the CRC traveled the length and breadth of the Gambia, asking different people in different walks of life as to what they wish, to be changed the constitution, what was supposed to be left off, and all those type of things. So at the end of the day, we had a holistic package. We had for the first time in our history, we had a constitution that was, the voice of the people. We chose exactly what we wanted in that constitution, right? So once it went to parliament, it was disrupted and it didn't go through. So it was wasted resources, wasted time, wasted everything, so it wasn't passed through. The reason why it wasn't passed, mostly it was based on partisan politics, purely partisan politics. It was because by then it wasn't favorable for the executive, right? Who we are to police. I don't know if you understand. Mm-hmm. So this was a problem that also, was of concern. So we also promised that when we come, we'll do our level best, both individually, but also try to influence others in making sure we have proper scrutinization. That was point number 3 in our 4-point agenda, scrutinization process, so that at least it will bring efficiency in our working and legislative processes. So the fourth one was inclusion. Like for the first time, we felt that there was really, how do I say, there wasn't unison within my constituency because people were cordial, everything is okay, but I think it was high time we brought everything together, whereas anything that we are doing, we do it collectively as a constituency, So this included the differently able women, children, and all those things. So part of what made my campaign easier was that I've been engaging with these people prior to coming to politics, So it was something that I had tangible evidence that I have already done in the constituency that, really helped amplify my campaign. So these were the 4 promises, I campaigned with. And after even coming in, now that I'm elected and in, this will be my guide, my guide towards my entire 5-year tenure, because I'll be working, following step by step these promises that I've made. So
okay. These
are the things that we wish to change, both on the constituency level, but also on national level as well, because these are the things that are lacking currently.
I want people to understand the extent of your achievement, because in African countries, the barrier of entry into politics is very, very high. Hence, you have the elite only engaging in politics. So what you manage to achieve as an independent, within a major party as an independent, is remarkable. I'll give you an example. In Nigeria, they have a ruling party called APC.
Yeah.
So in this APC, you have a declaration of interest to buy a form to contest for election. So let's say fees include 100 million naira for presidential aspirant, made up, and this is made up of 30 million naira for the expression of interest and 70 million naira for the nomination form, right? Wow. And then for the governorship aspirants, you have 50 million naira for to get the form. And then for senatorial and house representative, almost like what you did, is 20 million naira for the Senate and 10 million naira for the House of Representatives.
I wouldn't have stood a chance if I was in Nigeria.
So that's what I'm saying. So that alone, that's
the problem. What of the layman like myself who wishes to enter politics and make certain changes, which means you have to be elite or you have to be an elitist or part of the elite movement to be able to at least stand a chance even of being elected. So
that's what we need to change.
You'll always have the same set of people on a generational basis. So that's quite that needs to be changed.
Yeah, that's what we need to change in our country, because even for people that cannot afford that money, but they have political ambition, they tend to be sponsored by someone who now becomes the godfather. But when you now get into politics, when you now get into office, being sponsored by someone else, you no longer think of your constituents. You're now thinking of appeasing the godfather that sponsored you. So that destroyed the idea of politics or representing your constituents.
Exactly.
So that's what we need to change.
Because with that, there's no more integrity. There's no more principle. It's like you don't even need to take an oath, because who are you serving, right? You get the point. So I think that's a problem, something that would be a big fight, but it needs to be changed. I think it's high time people start being bold enough and saying it as it is. So it's a big barrier. It's a problem, and it's across the board. It's everywhere, to be honest. Globally, it's everywhere.
Yes.
Globally, it's everywhere.
Yes. Honourable Njai, I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, almost an unfair question. I always said I will ask this question to any African politician that I have on this podcast. And fortunately or unfortunately, you're the first politician I'm having on the podcast. So the question is...
Wow, I'm honored.
Are you willing to die for your country?
100%, definitely. 100%, definitely. Like, why not? Why not?
Okay, I ask you that question because I know that one day you're going to become the president of Gambia. And when you become the president of Gambia, there will come a point where you have to choose between your country, between your people, and some external influence. Whether it has to do with treaty, whether it has to do with arms deal, whether it has to do with aid, whether it has to be with finance. There will come a point where you have to choose between your country, your people, and some external influence or external interest. And that's the point that I would like you to remember exactly what I'm speaking to you about now, why I ask you this question. Are you willing to die for your country? So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah. And the thing is, with regards to the above things that you've mentioned, like, for example, when, let's say, I'm in leadership, right? Let's say I'm the president, and then I have to make a very, decisive call, the citizenry should always be priority in whatever you do. I don't think there should be any option with regards to choosing, to sacrifice, yourself, for your citizens. There's no greater honor than that. And the thing is, I did exemplify that, and I have pictorial evidences to prove that. Because in 2016, during the ouster of President Jammeh, that was after the elections, and he lost the elections and then refused. Then it brought, then later on the impasse came through, and people mass exodus, from the Gambia going to a neighboring country in Senegal, right? During those processes, you could say 90% or so of the populace, went wherever they could, to save themselves and stuff. I, being the person I am, together with some of my trusted comrades, being an activist, being a patriot and a lover of my country, I decided to stay. Most of my family members went, because Gambia and Senegal, we are border, so we also have family members in Senegal. Even my mom, everyone fled. They all went, but I stayed here. And most importantly, that's why it's very important to also have patriotic parents, right? My dad, being the person he is as well, decided to stay as well. So I was living with my dad. We didn't went anywhere. And in fact, I was part of both to and fro before the impasse, during the impasse, and later on when things died down. We were at the ferry terminal helping people, to come. And during the process as well, I was doing my own things here, talking to relevant stakeholders. By then, even the internet was down, but we were finding other means through my charity. And we were able to even raise a lot of money to send to people on the border to provide fooding and shelter for them. It was very risky because by then, you don't know who is who. Anything can happen, but it was a risk we were supposed to take. And it would have been an honor for me, it was an honor for me to sacrifice myself, in the service of my nation. So I don't think there's any greater honor than that. So though that's not compare to, let's say, being in a presidential seat today and having to make very critical decisions, but I think that's something to to showcase that at least I have manifested patriotism in that level. So I think when things like that come up, always like we should, like right now, I as a lawmaker, I should always have that mindset that whatever happens in this country, I together with all public office holders, we always have to make sure that we are in the forefront. We are always willing to sacrifice ourselves, not just being. Patriotism is in the heart. You don't need to be in a certain level to be able to make those sacrifices. So I think with the sound conscience and the right state of mind and sincerity, I think one should always be in readiness any time to sacrifice yourself for your nation. There's no greater honor than that. And part of Islam, to loving your country, is a very, very big status in Islamic doctrine. Loving your country, is an obligation to every Muslim that one should always love their country. So these things combined, should be always considered and put it into consideration. So it's not even about me being in the presidency to be able to sacrifice certain things for my country. It's a mindset that one has to carry always. So yeah, I think, we always make sure we put our country first in everything we do. And we pray for God's guidance too, in whatever case it might be.
Okay. So, I was wondering, when you were in secondary school or higher education, did they teach you anything within the realms of post-colonial legacy, within the realms of Pan-Africanism or colonialism? Did they teach you anything like that in the secondary school? Because certainly they didn't teach me that when I was in Nigeria. So did they teach you that anything to do with Pan-Africanism when you were in secondary school or in higher education in Gambia?
They didn't. I don't know. That's a huge vacuum that needs to be looked into, really, because mostly us Africans, we only deem ourselves civilized only when we happen to be exposed in foreign countries, especially Western countries. Is shown to people that have been in the West and back home. It's like there's this out view that he might be more exposed, yes, because of his travel. But there's a way we Africans tend to look at people who have been in the West or something like that as they are better off than us, or, in terms of intellectualism, of socio-economic outlook, understanding of the, global spectrum and stuff. So that's a huge gap that needs to be. And the main problem with that is because we're not taught in our schools as to what it means to be, and what it means to be Pan-African, what it means to love your country, and what it means to be a Black person, and the importance of being a Black person, and the importance of the Black person, and the influence of the Black person towards generational history. Because if you go back, we were the first people that became civilized, if you go back to history. And most of these things that have been taken away from us, and some of the ways that it's been taken away from us is that they've deprived us these things, in basic education and also senior education, inclusional curriculums, because these are tender ages whereby, we'll be able to at least have that sense of patriotism in us, whereby we'll be able to grow with them, with that Pan-Africanist mindset, to be able to know what our problems are, and how to solve those problems. So these are things that, these are gaps that really need to be bridged. So I didn't go through those processes. And also, here in the Gambia, we have private schools, also public schools. So I went to a private school. So in public school, they do study government, like they do, but that's on a formal level. But I don't think there's any curriculum as per to, Pan-African training or whatever, or Pan-African education and all those things. It's really not in the curriculum.
That's the one thing.
I have been so unfortunate because I have been taught Western history. With growing up now, I know like it has nothing to do with whatever I have to do, because I'm just so lucky to be, to grow up and be able to read books, be able to at least do my own research, and later on finding out that, this is the person I am and this is the person I should be. You can't serve as an ambassador for Africa if you don't know about Africa. If you don't have that sense of patriotism, that sense of African. If you don't love your skin, how can you promote it?
Yes, because I asked you that question. I asked you that question because, it's the same in Nigeria, it's the same in most African countries. There's no Pan-Africanism in curriculum. There's nothing to talk about, colonial legacies or all those things that
Afrocentric subjects. No
Afrocentric subjects. So all those things are not there. And I ask you that question because in 2005, France passed a law that came to be known as the Law of February 23rd, 2005. The law was intended to recognize the contribution of the Hakis, the 200,000 or so Algerians who fought alongside French colonial troops in their country, during the War of Independence. I think it was 1954 to 1962. But by the way, France subsequently withdrew and abandoned these soldiers, and most of them, about 130,000 of them, were executed. So, but that's not the point of this comment. What I wanted to say is that a clause of this bill mandated schools, schools to teach courses that should recognize, in particular, the positive role of the French government, French presence in overseas countries, especially in North Africa. Do you understand that?
Central Africa.
Yeah, mandating schools to teach the positive role of French presence overseas, especially in Africa. Positive role, So this is what they're teaching students in France. So why can't African leaders teach African students their own view of the history? Teach them about Pan-Africanism, teach them to love their country, teach them to love themselves. African countries, especially Nigeria, are the number one consumer, if either number one or number two consumer next to India, of bleaching cream. Do you understand? The idea that our sisters are bleaching their skin is that idea that the other complexion is superior than what they have. Do you understand? This is a deeper issue that we need to address. You understand? So the fact that France is...
And what's unfortunate is, it's like, you can't take a certain percentage, and make it parallel with the entire populace.
Of course.
What those statistics show is that it's like saying, I am not comfortable with the color of my skin. I do not want to be black.
Yeah, I don't blame them though, because what we've seen is that the beauty standard has been defined. Someone else has defined the beauty standards. Do you understand? So the idea is that someone else
now it needs to be redefined.
Yes.
In its proper source.
Yes.
It needs to be redefined to its proper source.
Yes.
And that's where I and you, need to use our mediums in trying to.
Yes, I really want us to work together personally on this. If I have to come to Gambia, I'll come to Gambia. If I have to speak to your assembly, I have to speak to them, so that we can start to put something in the curriculum to start to teach the young people, to start to let them understand.
Some of my interviews, maybe I'll share some of my interviews with you. I've always tried my level best in making sure, for example, I just realized that we have more of bureaucrats, in the country rather than technocrats. And technocrats build nations. They build these institutions. They build these whatever processes that needs bureaucratic, administration is first built. The structure needs to be there before administration starts. So technocrats are builders. When they say Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built by technocrats, right? So Africa Africa should be rich in technocrats right now. And the thing is, we don't have career guidance in our schools, because youth sometimes, I think we more forced in the academic lane rather than the technical, the technical side of things. Because sometimes someone might not be, efficient academically, but they might be very good with their hands or other means, So it's really good to try to put them through at an early age, to give them certain options as to, exactly, to beautify, technocracy, to beautify technical work, and all those stuff, rather than always just being in the office and all those stuff, So these are all things that need to, and also, like what you've just said, we need Afrocentric subjects as curriculums in how Gambia came about, who are the key founders of our country, what did it mean for the country, where has it taken the country, With that, we'll be able to know exactly where we stand right now and our responsibilities personally, and what roles we should play in making sure we do things necessary in preparing the generation to come. So these are things that are lacking, And just a couple of months ago, I saw a post in one of our internet sources in my country here, saying that I think the UK or the British embassy or something, were having a discussion with or higher educational institutions as per to bringing in human rights as a curriculum. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So I don't know. I like to read in between the lines. So I saw that as a big problem. I'm like, it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I want to say something quickly. I want to
try to know ourselves.
I want to say something quickly about that, because this is something that is quite important, because we cannot forget cultural element in anything we do. There is cultural element, there is cultural differences. One thing that the COVID has taught us, especially in the UK here, is that, freedom and human rights is selective, or defined differently depending on who is defining it. Do you understand? So for Britain or British Embassy or British Commission to come and want to institute human rights course in your school is something that your assembly will have to review, whatever it is. On a case-by-case basis, you have to take a look at it and scrutinize it through the lens of your culture. Through the lens of your culture.
No, I will influence that to the maximum. I'll make sure I'm well acquainted with exactly where the fifth legislature. We are the sixth legislature. So I'll make my findings as per to the 5th legislature, where they left off in terms of, the education, the Committee for Education, and, certain influences as to, making sure certain, topics that are more patriotic are incorporated into the system at a very tender age, so as to help prepare our youths in terms of taking over, our continent. So these are very important things. And the thing is, human rights is human rights. Like everyone likes the idea, human rights. Everyone, deserves equal rights, but the thing is, as Africans, we should have our own ways of defining it, because we have both our religious and cultural values that is we protected as well. These are unique values that make us African. These are values that differentiates us from others. This is what makes us unique, and we shouldn't play with these ideals. So we should be very careful what we take, and it's okay to. It's a global village. The world is a global village.
It's okay to be open-minded. However,
yes, we need to be open-minded. We need to explore and stuff.
Yes, but you still have to scrutinize
as to how to upkeep, cultural values, because these are things that makes us Africans. These are very important things.
So that's what I'm saying.
I don't like the idea of importing ideals every time. We have to be very, I think we have to be comfortable in also being able to sell our ideals elsewhere, our African values elsewhere, and they have to appreciate it as well equally. So these are things that we need.
Yeah, I always make a joke like, Africans are very easy to adopt other people's culture. If you see like Chinese or Indians, Chinese or Indians are more likely to.
They're so conservative.
Yeah,
so conservative.
They're more likely to introduce
what they have.
They're more likely to introduce their culture to you. Like if you come in the UK here, the popular food, the most popular food here is Indian food and Chinese food, are the most popular food in the UK. Do you understand?
Yeah. I also is it okay to ask a question?
Yes,
as
please.
For the discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, in Nigeria, I don't know. In Nigeria, when it comes to enterprises, right, both private and public enterprises, in terms of hiring people, let's say foreigners, people that are not Nigerian, let's say I as a Gambian coming to Nigeria to work, is there any mechanism put in place, like in Senegal, there is this law whereby anyone that has to hire has a business and being a foreign person and has to hire, I think at least 75% of your workforce should be, Senegalese, for example. So is it like that in Nigeria or something? Because we don't have that here in my country, and I think these are really important things that once investors come in our country, we should try to make sure that part of promoting employment for our people, we make sure a certain percentage, of our people are employed. I don't know.
Yes, you can promote that. It's called the local content. Whether it's oil and gas, if you give a contract to oil and gas company, they have to have local content. If the skills are not there, they have to train. They have to train the locals.
Then we have a lot of work to do. We don't have that here.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have that here, unfortunately.
So that's what you can introduce. I think
that will help in curbing unemployment rate. At least it will lower the unemployment rate, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the idea is just to have local content. Companies will be mandated to hire at least 75% of local workforce. If the excuse is that they're not skilled, well, if they're not skilled, you have to train them. Train them in those skills that you require them to perform.
Them.
Yeah. So train them in those skills. The former president of your country, Jammeh, is not someone I will consider a democratic president. Would you agree with that assertion?
100%. 100%. It was a dictatorship. It was nothing like democratic.
And then how did he leave office again? He said was there a demonstration for him to leave office, or he was just voted out of office?
Yeah, he was voted out. Surprisingly, he was voted out. But for the first time, the country came out collectively to say enough is enough. So everyone came through. The opposition parties, for the first time, decided to put their differences aside and form a coalition, a very strong coalition, and also Gambians in diaspora, did big fundraising programs and raised a lot of money, and pumping it in the country, making sure the coalition had all the right materials and tools to push through, and the advocacy was going on. We were on the media, and my other comrades, and other youth, very strategically using our WhatsApp groups, and everyone did their thing once in, did what they had to do. But the most important event was that there was one man called Solo Sandeng. May his soul rest in peace. I think he's an icon of Gambia because he sacrificed his life. Sometimes it becomes very tragic, but fortunately for us, but unfortunately for him, he lost his life. But that was the yardstick that paved the way for a new transition, because for the first time, Jammeh was such a brute, and he was so fair that not a single soul, had that gut to, speak truth to power. So for the first time, the guy arranged a public demonstration together with his youth movement and came out publicly, to denounce the then government, And as a result, he was apprehended. He was beaten mercilessly. He was, I could say, cut into pieces. The pictures were gruesome, to be honest. He lost his life, but that was what sparked the revolution. That was what sparked. That was a turning point for the Gambia. And eventually, as a result of that sacrifice, things. The transition came through, and we got what we wanted. We had that team. Yeah.
Yeah. May soul rest in peace. Sometimes
thanks so.
we lose someone for change to happen. So what about the current president? What about your current president, Adam Barrow? How do you assess him?
Yeah, I think he's more of a listener. I like to be objective when I say things. Even when I like to be constructive in my criticism, because I'm not boastful. I'm not a proud person. I'm not an arrogant person. So I'm very mindful as to how I say things and stuff like that. Because he's the president. Things it wouldn't be easy every time, but it's our duty also as lawmakers to police the executive. So in my assessment, because we've been with him for the past 5 years, I think he's a listener. I think he's more less authoritative than the former regime. I think in terms of freedom of expression, I think he's more tolerant, because sometimes I look at the media and people like yourselves in the media say things that you wouldn't have lasted a second in the booth if Jammeh was around. So so you'll give him credit for that, and I think he's also very development oriented, because there are also projects that have different projects that are taking place. These projects they are questionable, some, but at least there's been changes in certain areas. Coming to you have to be critics as well. I think corruption has been over the roof in the Gambia since he's coming in, because the thing is, I don't know if he sometimes doesn't hear about these things, or he just chooses to be ignorant in certain things. But I've seen recently he's just changed his cabinet, saying that he's he wants to accelerate things, and we had a TRRC as well, right? Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, that was during Jammeh's regime from 1994 to 2017. Atrocities that were done, whereby victims were brought in to tell their stories and stuff. So in fact, in a couple of days, I think you should be more you should be following the Gambian news from now on. In a couple of days, he will be taking out a white paper whereby these are recommendations that were put through his office, for consideration and implementation, right? So we're all waiting for that white paper as to recommendation from the TRRC. So this was a promise that he made. So we hope he fulfills it. And in terms of the, bureaucratic malpractice and all. So he's decided to change his cabinet. He's reshuffled some people, he's maintained some people and reshuffled them. So let's see what happens. He's making some moves. Let's see what happens. But in terms of illicit patronage too, it's a big problem in Gambia because you'll see business people that are very close to the president being given lands, unquestionable things have been happening that, people have been, really vocal in terms of these things, and nothing has been done so far. It's like, sometimes they are close aids. It takes, God to, put them on check and stuff. So I think he has to step up and making sure at least to know that he means business, But I don't know, what's most important is that we have peace. But we also, need progress. I don't know if he's the right person to give that to the Gambia. And to be honest, so we're not very satisfied with how things have been going. So let's see. He's recently won the elections with a landslide with over 200,000 plus votes. So let's see in the next what happens down the lane. Let's see what happens. But
I think
let's be optimistic. Let's see what happens.
So it's always good to see young people like you, coming into politics. And because in Africa, we always have lifetime presidents, career presidents. And most of these people are above 70 years old. By the way, this is not unique to Africa. We can see what's happening in America, Joe Biden and, Angela Merkel before she stepped down. So, but the purpose of this podcast is to focus on Africa anyway. So in Africa, we have a lot of old people who has been in the office. Most of them have been in office for more than 30 years, so forth and so forth. A good example is Yoweri Museveni, president of Uganda, who is 77 years old and has been in office for 36 years. And then you have someone like Paul Biya, president of Cameroon, is 89 years old and has been in office for 39 years. He has been in office before you were born.
Wow.
And is still in office. So how can we change this?
Look at, I'm president of Equatorial Guinea, Obiang, for 40 years.
Yeah. So it's how can we change this in Africa? How can we encourage young people to run for public office? Because there's already high barrier of entry, especially in Nigeria. There's a lot of money involved, but at least in your country, it doesn't seem to be that a lot of money involved in terms of gaining entry to run. So how do we encourage young people to run for public office?
Yeah, we need thorough advocacy in terms of youth participation in politics. But what's the most important thing is youth voices in so many countries are not really amplified. It's just youth creating themselves into groups, or associations, or civil societies, or charities, or whatever you can call it, coming together, putting through their initiatives, single-handedly, contributing in one way or the other towards the, the development of the nation. What happens on an executive level, like on a diplomatic or official levels, in order to be able to tap into certain things. But does that relate with is that in relation with the realities on the ground? So these are some of the problems that youths are facing, So unless and until youths decide to, check other mediums of making their voices heard, like the way I did it with my team, after careful consultation and discussions, we decided to take things, to a whole nother level single-handedly. We did all the required processes. We did everything possible with our given resources, though it was very limited. And we were able to push things through. And we had challenges. We had so many obstacles. You name it. But we eventually, made it happen. But the most important thing is, in order to be part of the decision-making process, maybe in the Gambia, things are a bit more lenient in terms of, advocacy. Because in my own case, I didn't pass through any difficulty in making sure, let's say any difficulty in terms of the electoral processes, and, the registration processes and, being able to run. So like you said, there are certain countries, let's say, for example, in Nigeria, it takes a lot of money to be able to, register to run for any position. So these are things that need strong laws to change these things. And it all starts from the parliament. Youth should start in any country. Let's say, for example, let's say in Nigeria, the youth should start there. Let them mobilize themselves. Consult with the relevant stakeholders, with the relevant lawmakers. In all cities, all over the country. Enforcing them to rally behind that, to push them, to force them to make laws that will, be of benefit to the youths. So this is a start. If that doesn't happen, we have to revolutionize everything now. It worked for me. It worked for me because sometimes if you're not giving something, you have to take it. You have to do whatever possible to take it.
The power belongs to the people. The power belongs to the people.
And the people exemplify that because imagine our campaign, I didn't have any material or financial resources to be able to pull this off, But what do we have? We had a very sound agenda, and we knew exactly what message to communicate to our people. We knew what their problems were, and the youth populace as well. So I could say 90%, or I could say 85%, of the total voters, were youth that voted for me, And the most important thing is these were youth that were, first-time voters, most of them. I could say 25% or 30% of these youths were first-time voters, So it was a calling, and we proved ourselves, So I think in countries like Nigeria, like your country, since it's not in law, these resources, you need elixirs, you need financial muscle to be able to, at least even stand a chance of running. So that's the first stage that needs to be taken off, to be able to pave way for youths. So the first thing I would suggest is for youths to make sure they revolute, make sure to have one voice, have a very solid structure, and try to constructively and with discipline and due diligence consult with all the relevant stakeholders, including the lawmakers, telling them that, to force them to make sure they pass laws, that will at least, limit the financial requirements of running for any public office. That can be a good start.
I agree. I agree. So, but what I'm going to task you with, you're probably doing this already, is to find people, people will come to you all the time to say, they will see your success in winning the election and they want to run, which is a good thing. Now, you will have to start to mentor other young people. You will have to mentor other young people, or even people that are older than you who may not know how to go about these things. You will have to start mentoring them, start mentoring them, like we spoke before the interview about doing like grassroots work. You don't have to jump straight to the House of Assembly. You can start with your local community. You can start with your local community, your local market square, your local, library, whatever it is you can organize, just to make sure your community is doing well, is progressing, making sure there's no theft, there's no burglaries and things like that, just to, doing things. If there's a pothole and the government is not fixing it, get 2 or 3 of your boys, dig the hole and cover it up, just to look after your community.
Community service.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important.
So,
because, let's say in governmental aspects, when things in terms of policies or whatever, it's usually a bottom-top approach, right? Because it's usually done on the executive level, on a more light level, But when it comes to community development, it has to be grassroots. It should be a bottom-top approach, So these people should provide the funding, and these people can take it up from the grassroots and put them up, So this is a belief, this is a strategy that I believe, should be able to work and should be implemented. And like you said, we've always been doing this even before coming to politics. So it's just like taking it to a whole another level, trying to mentor these upcoming, young ones as using my first-hand experience, as a subject matter, So what I usually say in my own case is different. I always had this idea that, I'll try and communicate as much as I can and contribute as much as I can towards the development or influence things that will be of benefit to my constituency, to my community, and to the Gambia at large, But later on, I realized that, I've been doing this for so many years, but what dividend has it paid, Because the policies that they're putting through, the laws that they're putting through, doesn't really directly affect me, So I have to be in the decision-making board to be able to make sure I influence policies that would be of benefit to the grassroots community, So at least I have a yardstick. At least I have a motive. At least I have something that's of substance that prompted me into going into politics. So right now I'm inside. I'm in the decision-making board. At least I have a roadmap. I have a plan. I have a promise. I have a sense of direction. I believe of something that can be continued later. So what I advise them is, when coming into politics, don't just come into politics just for the sake of it. You can't just sit in your home, in your laptops, doing nothing. You haven't contributed anything in the society, in whatever manner you can, and just all of a sudden just come up and say you want to handle a position like want to handle a public position, like that's no joke. That's serious stuff. You have to first try to at least have the prerequisites. Try to enhance yourself academically. Try to at least be cognizant of issues surrounding your community, surrounding your country, surrounding Africa at large. You have a very broad perspective as to exactly what the problems are, so that at least you'll be able to solve certain problems at your own level, and also influence them in whatever capacity you can. I also like to tell them that, let's say, my case was different because I've been doing it voluntarily, have been doing it for the passion, right? Like, if you want to enter public office, some of them, I would ask them their ages, Once they tell me their age, I would make that projection, like in the next, let's say 5 years, you'll be this, you'll be eligible to stand for this and this and this, Why not prepare for it now? Try to make your research. If you are not part of any group, try to, at least enroll in a group, whether it's a charity, civil society, like any other group it might be, as long as it's progressive and pro-development, at least gain those experiences, trying to get mentors. Sometimes you visit people like myself, who can help you out in certain things. You can visit, people are out there who with vast experiences. So these are all processes that youths need to take, in order to prepare themselves, for leadership positions. So I like to be as sincere as I can, in terms of putting them, because at the end of the day, we want quality youth leaders, not just youth leaders for the sake of it, but quality youth leaders, efficient ones. So yeah, we're doing all.
Okay.
Let's work towards this. So.
Okay, so this is my last question. It's just, what is your vision? What is your vision for Gambia? What is the Gambia that you dream about?
So my vision for Gambia is to see a united Gambia, a Gambia whereby people are united for the sake of being Gambian, but not based on any partisan, inclinations or whatever, I want to see a self-reliant Gambian whereby we'll be able to utilize available resources, to our advantage, to be able to make use of what we have, to consume them, but most importantly, to be able to export them elsewhere, and then reap the benefits and to own ourselves and to utilize ourselves to the maximum. I wish to see a resourceful Gambia, whereby in every domain, in every sector, worldwide, anywhere you go, anywhere you mention any country, our name will be up there, and in terms of Pan-Africanism, whenever one mentions the love of Africa, I want the Gambian name to be up there. We have very bright youths and Gambian personnel who are already, on the ground as we speak, in their different domains, different facets, like displaying the Gambian fish, in such a productive and substantive manners, in different facets, that's very applaudable. And these are my inspirations. These are people that that inspire me to always wake up amplified in order to take my country to higher heights and the continent in general. And but most importantly, I wish to see a Gambia that will always be, boastful in terms of the brain gain, because most of the time, us Africans, once we, go outside to, improve our education or enhance ourselves in terms of, educational capacities, we tend to usually stay in those countries to benefit them. So this is a brain drain for our country and our continent in general, So I want to see a more resourceful Africa whereby these people, will come back, to, sacrifice at least to make sure that we take a country to higher heights, Yeah, so imagine we had the same year of independence with Singapore. But look at Singapore now. Singapore is up there, and we almost had independence at the same time frame, So you could see the huge gap. So we have problems that we need to solve, and this is the type of this is the Gambian future that I wish to see, and hopefully I'm very optimistic that we will get to that, and I'll do my level best in playing a part in that.
Yes, I'm very optimistic as well that we will get there as Africa, as a continent, and I know that you will play a big role, and many others like you will play a big role in that. So, Honourable Abdoulie Njai, thank you very much for coming to the Pan-African Experience.
Thanks so much, Ero. It's an honor and a pleasure to have this interview with you. It's been really inspiring as well, because I would also give a big clap for you. People watching out there don't know what type of sacrifices it takes, to have a Pan-African channel, because you would have opted to, hit different domains in terms of, having the publicity or getting the ratings needed, because everything is business now, but you choose the Pan-African show, which really, says a lot about you as a person. And like you said, it's the beginning of many greater things. Hopefully we'll meet soon. And
thank you very much. Why I'm laughing is
so
that
many things. And I just want to say, I love you, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I was laughing when you're giving me the compliment, because I was joking with a friend that I could be dancing on TikTok and getting like 700 million views.
Exactly, that's my point.
But,
exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly, that's my point. Exactly. And I don't know if you know, the Pan-African discourse is so boring.
It's so boring, right?
Exactly. So for someone to just decide to have that discussion says a lot about that person. It means you're really passionate about the content, and you're very sincere in what you do. And we'll also do whatever we can collectively to make sure we empower each other in whatever domain or sector we are in.
I want to work with you. We're going to speak.
The honor is mine,
we're going to speak outside, off camera. I would like to work with you personally to see whatever we can do. That would be great. So thank you very much for coming on again.
You're most welcome, sir. You're most welcome, sir. It's an honor, definitely.
Okay.